Welcome back to the Capitol Dateline. We're on the floor of the Florida Senate with Senate President Don Gaetz and House Speaker Will Weatherford. Let's go to a tough issue of national importance, and that is expansion of Medicaid, which is a joint federal-state program. And man, there are a lot of different positions all over the board, and a question obviously is how do you bring all of those positions in for a landing? Mr. Speaker, we'll start with you. You have been very reluctant to expand the Medicaid program in accordance with the Obamacare approach. How strong does the House feel about that, saying no to the federal money and no to the expansion?
Well, I think the House feels very strong about it. We, in the Obamacare package, the one thing that the Supreme Court said that should be left up to the states was the idea of expansion of Medicaid. And I think the conversation we're having now is how do we provide health care and services to the citizens of our state, but without putting ourselves in a position where we can't sustain it long term. I think sustainability is a word that needs to be incorporated into this debate. And so while we want to provide the true safety net for people who live in our state, we also want to make sure that we don't continue to create an addiction to federal dollars that will not be there long term. And so our position has been and will continue to be that we don't want to take any of the federal dollars. Part of the reason, though, also is that we have a lot of children that are in the state of Florida that still don't have access to health care. This bill does not solve that. The expansion doesn't solve that. We have an APD waiting list where you have tens of thousands of people with real disabilities that have no access to care. This doesn't solve that problem. Our thought is before you spend thousands and thousands of dollars for able-bodied working adults who have no children, which is predominantly the people that this money would go to, we think there are other systematic safety net issues that exist in our state that need a lot of attention. And I worry a lot about the federal government's ability to sustain the hundreds of billions of dollars that they're going to have to pay for to expand Medicaid across this country. And I think that the Florida House just doesn't want to do it.
Mr. Speaker, can the House theoretically remain firm in that position and leave the Capitol with no expansion of Medicaid?
Well, I think we can. It's not that we're being firm. We don't want to be inflexible. I can tell you the Senate President has been extremely understanding of the House position, and we're trying to work with them. We want to help the same people. I think the Florida House and the Florida Senate want to help the exact same people. There's a debate between the chambers and the governor, and there's a debate going on in this country about what's the right way to help them. I can tell you philosophically, the Senate President and I think feel very similarly about this issue. But we have to take, we have memberships, we have entire bodies that we have to work with, and we're both trying to figure out what is that landing zone, what is that place we can get to where we feel like everyone can be comfortable. But I would tell you sitting here today, the idea of taking federal money, we don't think is something the Florida House would accept this session.
Mr. President, in the Senate right now there are two different plans, one that takes federal money and uses it to allow people to buy private insurance to cover their needs, I think up to 138% of the federal poverty level. The other would set up another system covering people who have needs up to 100% of the federal poverty level, but not using the federal funds. How will this work itself out in the Senate itself and then somehow relate to the House? And then there's another party, the governor, who said he wants to expand the Medicaid program in accordance with the federal plan and take the federal money for up to 3 years. So how do we deal with all of those different scenarios?
Well, let's start with the obvious. Neither the House nor the Senate has a plan alive in committee that would do what Governor Scott wants to do, and that's simply take all the federal money and maintain Medicaid as we know it, just have 1 out of every 4 Floridians on Medicaid. There's no bill in the Senate, and as far as I know, there's no bill in the House that would do that. So unless there's something else that's going to happen, some break here toward the end of the session, I think that idea is probably not going to go very far. In the Senate, as you point out, we've got 2 approaches. that we're examining. And we're having committee hearings, we're having debate, we're vetting both of those ideas. One of them takes some federal money and one of them doesn't take federal money. We think we need to have the kind of open debate about these ideas that frankly was missing when the Congress of the United States passed PPACA or Obamacare. They didn't have as open a debate. They didn't have people who even read the bill that they passed. We think it's important to measure twice and cut once. Or as Senator Brandes, who used to be in the House, puts it, he was an Army captain in Iraq, and he was in combat. He put it to me this way. He said, Don, sometimes it's best to be the second one in the minefield. And we're going to have the opportunity to see what some other states have done in some experiments that they've undertaken. Arkansas is talking about an experiment. I think that there are a couple of other states. I talked to the Speaker of the House from Ohio the other day. They're talking about doing something a little different. And then there are states that are going forward and doing what Governor Scott wants to do, and that's just take the money and maintain the current Medicaid system, just expand it. There's nothing that says that we have to come to a rapid conclusion on this. The federal money, if it's federal money we're worried about, is going to be available at 100% for 3 years, assuming the Congress can keep its promise. So we're not going to rush into this. We're going to have a full and complete debate and let all the points of view be heard. But it's possible the Senate may come up with either the Bean plan or the Negron plan or some derivation of one of those plans. But we're very mindful that the House of Representatives has taken a principled stand. The Speaker, I think, deserves a lot of credit, as I've said before, for putting a stake in the ground and saying we can't just do this Washington's way. And so we have to work together on this, and there are a lot of opinions. We're a microcosm, Steve, of the whole country, and the whole country's debate about this. So I want to make sure we do it right, and we have different approaches being debated openly in the Senate, and we're going to continue to do that as long as we believe that there are options available.
Can a budget be written without coming to some kind of conclusion about Medicaid, Mr. Speaker?
I think it can. I think it should. I mean, to me, it's a policy distinction. If we want to expand Medicaid at any level, or if you want to take federal dollars at any level, that's a separate bill, I think, and a separate issue from the budget. We're facing that in the Florida House of Representatives right now. We have members of my minority caucus, the Democrats, are saying they don't want to vote for our budget because we won't accept Medicaid dollars, even though that isn't even a part of our budget. And so they're trying to take one issue and bleed it into another. I think it's really important that we bifurcate issues that we disagree on, whether it's in our own chambers or even between the two chambers from other issues. The Senate President and I, if we were to sit here and talk about 100 different issues, we'd probably agree on 98 of them.
Yeah.
But are we going to spend our time focusing on the two we disagree on, or are we going to spend our time on the 98 that we can actually accomplish, put into law, and help solve the problems of our state? And my hope is that the Democrats in our chamber start to focus on the things we do agree on and not trying to put attention on the issues that we don't.
If we believe, Steve, the federal government, that they can and will maintain 100% funding for Medicaid expansion for the next 3 years, then by definition, this is not a budget item. It's only if you don't trust President Obama and the Congress that you would have to believe that that expanding Medicaid the way Governor Scott wants to do it would require dollars being placed in the budget. Because if we were to believe Congress, 100% of that money for the next 3 years will come from Washington, well, from the Chinese to Washington. Now, obviously, if we do a plan like Senator Bean has suggested, where we fund it with state money, then that'll have to be accommodated within the budget. But if you believe Washington, if you believe President Obama, and our Democratic friends, I would suspect, do, then they shouldn't be voting against the House budget or the Senate budget.
Okay, moving on. The governor has said that he really wants to pass some tax cuts this year. He wants to reduce further taxes, corporate income taxes, and he wants to eliminate the sales tax on manufacturers' equipment purchases. And Mr. Speaker, just update us on where those issues are. Is it likely he will get some of what he wants?
Well, I think they're being debated in the House. I can assure you it won't be up to me if he gets what he wants on those. I think we have 120 members that have opinions on this. We are all in favor of tax reform. We are all in favor of reducing the tax burden on the citizens of our state. But I think there are some other issues, like the fact that our citizens are paying, hundreds of millions of dollars more in tag and title fees than they were just a few years ago. We'd like to look at that. I think people are looking at the fact that they're paying rent twice, or paying a tax on rent twice in our system of government right now. I think that's something that our members would like to take a look at. It's not that the sales tax exemption on manufacturing isn't a legitimate issue to talk about, but is it the best utilization of state resources and dollars? So what we've told the governor is, we've been very frank with him. We're open to it, we're looking at it, we're analyzing it as a body, but we have not committed to it yet, because we feel like the case needs to be made that is the best way to spend $100 million of taxpayer money. We've got a tax code that has a tremendous amount of, some people call them loopholes, some people call them incentives for different industries. What I'd like to do is find tax cuts that help everybody. They don't help a particular industry or a particular group, but they help everybody. And they help the mom and pop shop, but they also help the single mother who's having a hard time paying her tax bill and providing for her children. And so we're looking for that middle ground, but we're open to what the governor's looking at. We got 4 weeks left in session, and there's plenty of time to have that debate.
Mr. President, 1 minute left. Final word. Are you happy, a happy camper, when you look forward to the end of this session?
When I was elected Senate President, I was warned there are going to be all these problems hanging over from past years. There's going to be all this bitterness, all this rancor. You're not going to be able to get a Mother's Day resolution passed. I am extraordinarily pleased at the level of cooperation we've had. We've already passed some significant bills. We've got others that are teed up to be passed very soon. I have to tell you that I'm pleased with the progress we're making. Of course we could do more, and we plan to do more, but I couldn't have a better partner than Will Weatherford, and the House of Representatives has been extraordinarily cooperative, but more than that, they have been the cradle of great ideas.
Thank you both for joining us.